President Lee Jae-myung, who's on a state visit to China, met with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing and agreed to strengthen bilateral ties by making more frequent visits between the two countries. The two sides also addressed security issues and agreed on the importance of resuming talks with North Korea. With just a day to go until the official opening of the world's biggest tech show, the CES in Las Vegas, global tech giants are gearing up for the event. Samsung unveiled its goal of putting AI into everything, while NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang announced the company's plans on autonomous vehicle AI. Ousted Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro pleaded not guilty in his first court appearance in New York. He told the judge he had been kidnapped and insisted he remains the legitimate president of Venezuela. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with a summit between President Lee Jae-myung and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing. Key focuses included strengthening bilateral ties and achieving peace on the Korean Peninsula. Our correspondent Yoon Jang-min is traveling with the president and files this report from Beijing.
The summit in Beijing began with the red carpet treatment and a 21-gun salute, as President Lee Jae-myung was given an official welcome by his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. During their 90-minute-long talks on Monday, the South Korean leader vowed to consolidate the Seoul-Beijing strategic partnership and make it irreversible.
이번 정상회담은 2026년을 한중 관계 전면 복원의 원년으로 만들 중요한 계기가 될 것입니다.
The sentiment was echoed by the Chinese leader.
As friends and neighbors, there should be more frequent visits between China and South Korea, and the two countries should communicate more actively.
High on the agenda was resuming dialogue with North Korea.
한반도 평화를 위해 실현 가능한 대안을 함께 모색하겠습니다. 번영과 성장의 기본적 토대인 평화에 양국이 공동 기여할 수 있도록.
Amid complicated geopolitics, she noted the two countries fighting together in the past against Japan's colonialism in the early 20th century.
The two countries should firmly stand on the right side of history and make the choices that are strategically right.
And according to China's Xinhua News, she called for the need to work together to oppose protectionism and practice true multilateralism, apparently with Beijing's rivalry with Washington in mind. After the talks, more than a dozen MOUs were signed, including on climate, digital technology, and intellectual property rights. Also on the table were sensitive issues, such as China's unauthorized steel structures in the West Sea.
As the maritime boundary in the West Sea has not been clearly demarcated, the two sides agreed to hold vice-ministerial talks within this year to discuss defining the boundary.
On the cultural front, the leaders have agreed to gradually expand exchanges, beginning in areas including the board game Go and soccer, amid China's unofficial ban on Korean cultural content. Also suggested was China expanding its delegation of pandas. Other focuses were addressing negative sentiment and hate speech targeting each other's countries, as well as expanding cooperation on investment and supply chains. Yi was the first state guest to be hosted by Xi in the new year, and it was their second summit in around 2 months.
While their first engagement 2 months ago was more of a get-to-know session, their focus this time was taking a step further to strengthen bilateral cooperation and deepen personal bond. Yoon Jang-min, Arirang News, Beijing.
And that's the first state visit by a South Korean president to China in nearly a decade. Attention was focused not only on the outcomes of the summit, but also on the tone of the talks and the personal rapport between the two leaders. For more, here's our Blue House correspondent, Song Yu-jin.
Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. This selfie of the first couples of South Korea and China offers a glimpse into the warm and friendly atmosphere of Monday's summit between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Xi Jinping. The photo was taken with a Xiaomi smartphone that President Xi had gifted to President Lee during his state visit to South Korea last November.
통신보안은 잘 됩니까? 정확하게有没有后门?
This time, Yi returned the gesture. He presented Xi with a painting depicting a family of qilins, a mythical creature in East Asian tradition, symbolizing good fortune, prosperity, and wise leadership. Yi also gave Xi a framed work of art featuring a gold leaf dragon motif long associated with authority and majesty. For First Lady Peng Liyuan, South Korea prepared a dorige, a traditional Korean accessory that hangs off a hanbok and a skincare device, reflecting her interest in fashion and beauty. The summit itself lasted for 90 minutes, longer than initially scheduled. National Security Advisor Wi Song-rak said the two leaders engaged in candid and in-depth discussions. That was followed by a state dinner where a band from the Chinese People's Liberation Army performed songs from both countries.
The two leaders resumed their conversation left unfinished 2 months ago in an amicable atmosphere.
The First Ladies also met separately over tea on the same day. Their conversation unfolded naturally, with both sharing artistic backgrounds. First Lady Kim Hae-kyung as a pianist and First Lady Peng as a soprano.
It's such a pleasure to meet you here in Beijing. I'm actually a longtime fan of you.
Kim later asked for Peng's interest in resuming the Korea-China Song Festival, which was last held in 2015, to which Peng called it a good suggestion.
So with the main event of his state visit, the South Korea-China summit, now concluded, President Yi will travel to Shanghai on Tuesday, after wrapping up his stay in Beijing with meetings with China's second and third highest-ranking officials, Li Qiang and Zhao Leji. Song Yujin, Arirang News, Beijing.
The world's biggest tech show, CES 2026, is just 1 day away from its official opening in Las Vegas. Some of the biggest players for this year's CES already held their media events, including Samsung, NVIDIA, and Hyundai. This year, the spotlight is firmly on artificial intelligence, not just in software, but in the physical world around us. Our Kim Do-yeon takes us there for a closer look.
While the show floor is still being prepped, the media frenzy has already begun at CES 2026 in Las Vegas, with industry giants unveiling their visions early. On Sunday night local time, in front of a crowd of 1,800 media and industry insiders, Samsung declared its mission to embed AI into every aspect of daily life.
No company can do what we do. We partner with industry leaders, innovating together to create the best AI experiences and deliver strong user benefits.
This comes as Samsung Electronics has set up an exclusive exhibit, marking the first time the tech giant has stepped away from the main Las Vegas Convention Center to hold its own standalone showcase at Wynn. At the exhibition, the keyword here is companion. Samsung aims to integrate AI into all appliances to ensure they actively assist and entertain users rather than just functioning as tools. For example, with the World Cup coming up this year, Samsung has created an AI audio assistant to mute out just the commentary or the crowd to personalize the game watching experience. Among the hardware highlights is the new micro RGB TV, featuring a revolutionary definition and design that can stand with only minimal support. Beyond home electronics, this year's CES is defined by physical AI intelligence that interacts with the real world. The shift was palpable at NVIDIA's keynote. As the world's most valuable company by market cap, NVIDIA drew thousands to a packed venue as CEO Jensen Huang unveiled Alpamayo.
Today we're announcing Alpamayo, the world's first thinking, reasoning, autonomous vehicle AI. Alpamayo is trained end-to-end, literally from camera in to actuation out.
Huang emphasized that this new agentic capability where AI reasons, plans, and uses tools is being open-sourced, effectively giving industries a blueprint to build their own physical AI. This trend extends to robotics as well. Hyundai Motor released its new robot lineups for Boston Dynamics, simultaneously announcing a partnership with Google's DeepMind to jointly develop next-generation humanoid robots and AI controls. Meanwhile, South Korean innovation is dominating the event's accolades. For the third consecutive year, Korea won the most innovation awards. Domestic firms took home around 60% of the some 280 awards given out, and notably, about 80% of those winners were small to medium-sized enterprises. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News, Las Vegas.
And here in South Korea, the country's foreign reserves fell for the first time in 7 months in December last year, due to interventions aimed at managing currency volatility. According to the Bank of Korea this morning, foreign reserves stood at just over $428 billion as of December, down $2.6 billion from November. After hitting a near 5-year low in May of last year, reserves had risen for 6 consecutive months to a peak in November. As of late November, South Korea ranked 9th globally in foreign reserves. Meanwhile, the post-Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro pleaded not guilty to 4 charges in a U.S. federal court on Monday, with each carrying a potential life sentence. Meanwhile, Venezuela's vice president and oil minister was formally sworn in on Monday as the country's interim president. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Deposed Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro pleaded not guilty to charges in the U.S., including narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and weapons offenses. Maduro entered the plea in a federal court in Manhattan just days after being captured by U.S. Special Forces in an operation ordered by U.S. President Donald Trump. The arraignment lasted less than 30 minutes, with the judge confirming Maduro's identity and that he understood the 4 charges against him. During the hearing, Maduro insisted he remains Venezuela's legitimate president, calling his capture illegal and describing himself as a prisoner of war. Maduro faces 4 federal counts, each carrying a potential life sentence. The case quickly spilled onto the international stage. At an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council on Monday, the U.S. rejected accusations of aggression against Venezuela, arguing the operation was an act of law enforcement tied to long-standing criminal charges.
As Secretary Rubio has said, there is no war against Venezuela or its people. We are not occupying a country. This was a law enforcement operation in furtherance of lawful indictments that have existed for decades.
However, Colombia, which requested the meeting, condemned the U.S. operation as a clear violation of Venezuela's sovereignty, political independence, and territorial integrity.
There is no justification whatsoever under any circumstances for the unilateral use of force to commit an act of aggression. Such action constitutes a violation of international law and the United Nations Charter.
Russia also accused Washington of abducting Venezuela's elected leader and demanded Maduro's immediate release, with Moscow's ambassador saying the United States had breached international law. Meanwhile, Venezuela announced a new interim leader. Vice President and Oil Minister Delcy Rodriguez was formally sworn in as interim president on Monday. The 56-year-old labor lawyer was sworn in by her brother, National Assembly head Jorge Rodriguez. Earlier in the day, Rodriguez struck a conciliatory tone toward Washington, inviting the U.S. government to cooperate on a future agenda. She said Venezuela aspires to live without external threats and hopes to move toward balanced and respectful relations with Washington. Her remarks marked a notable shift from earlier statements, expressing firm support for Maduro, as Venezuela faces one of the most consequential political crises in its modern history. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And as if to see the capture of Venezuelan President Maduro by the U.S. as a threat, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un personally ordered the hypersonic missile launch over the weekend, a move widely seen as a signaling that the North would retaliate against any threat to the regime. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
The U.S. operation in Venezuela surprised many, but one person who could be on edge the most is North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. In the aftermath of the U.S. action, the regime immediately launched at least 2 hypersonic missiles on Sunday and strongly denounced Washington's capture of Maduro, calling it the most serious form of encroachment on sovereignty. North Korea and Venezuela have long built close ties on the anti-U.S. front since establishing diplomatic relations in 1974. Experts said that Kim was shocked by the incident, adding that the fact the regime tested hypersonic missiles itself shows he wanted to demonstrate himself as different from Maduro, and that nobody, not even Washington, could harm the regime.
The missile test had an indirect message in it that North Korea is a nuclear-armed country while Venezuela is not, and that the two are completely different in that sense.
By launching a hypersonic missile, the regime was showing that it has the ability to strike back immediately if the U.S. or any other hostile forces threaten the regime. Basically, it was to warn others not to even think about trying something against it.
Kim has witnessed cases of regime change in other countries, such as Iraq and Libya, which could have taught him that the only way to survive is through strength. Now, with the capture of Maduro, Kim's belief in boosting strength for survival would have solidified further, making it much harder to start denuclearization talks on the peninsula. Moreover, Kim may have become even more cautious when it comes to engaging in talks with Trump.
Kim will not rush into negotiations. North Korea has already experienced the failed Hanoi talks. So unless he clearly sees a strong U.S. commitment, such as real steps toward a peace system on the Korean peninsula through a peace treaty or the normalization of North Korea-U.S. relations, it will be hard for him to come forward.
With the 9th Party Congress slated to be held within this month, the expert added that Kim will likely further highlight the need to develop both nuclear forces and conventional military capabilities. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. The Trump administration plans to meet U.S. oil executives later this week to discuss boosting oil production in Venezuela following the removal of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. President Donald Trump said the country's oil industry could be brought back online in less than 18 months despite years of sanctions, underinvestment, and damaged infrastructure. In an interview with NBC News, Trump said rebuilding Venezuela's oil sector would require billions of dollars, adding that U.S. companies could be reimbursed by the government or recover costs through future oil revenue. The meetings are aimed at drawing American oil firms back into Venezuela nearly 2 decades after their assets were nationalized. Senior executives at ExxonMobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips told Reuters they had not been consulted prior to Maduro's removal. Chevron is currently the only major U.S. oil firm operating in Venezuela under a limited sanctions waiver. U.S. health officials have cut the number of vaccines recommended for American children, reducing the nationwide schedule to shots against 11 illnesses. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Monday removed routine recommendations for vaccines against influenza, rotavirus, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, some forms of meningitis, and RSV, limiting them instead to high-risk children or case-by-case decisions made with doctors. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. personally directed the overhaul after reviewing how 20 peer nations approached childhood immunization, saying the United States had become an outlier in the number of vaccines it broadly recommends. Pediatricians and public health experts warn that the change could confuse parents and increase preventable diseases. In Switzerland, police on Monday say they have identified every person injured in the New Year's bar fire in Crans, Montana, putting the total at 116. Authorities say 40 people died and the youngest victim was 14 years old. 83 injured people remain hospitalized. Investigators say festive sparkling candles on champagne bottles ignited the fire when they came too close to the ceiling at the crowded La Constellation bar. Prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into the bar's managers on suspicion of involuntary homicide and related offenses. Tokyo's Toyosu Fish Market has opened 2026 with a record-setting tuna sale. A 243-kilogram bluefin sold for 510 million yen, about $3.2 million at Monday's first auction of the year. Sushi chain operator Kiyomura Corp., led by Kiyoshi Kimura of restaurant chain Sushi Tanmai, placed the top bid, beating the previous record he set in 2019. The tuna was caught off Oma in northern Japan, a region known for prized catches, and the auction traditionally carries good luck symbolism for buyers and sellers. Pacific bluefin populations are showing signs of recovery following years of conservation efforts. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
It's the coldest time of the year in South Korea. Most regions saw morning temperatures that were 5 degrees colder than yesterday. But by the afternoon, highs will go above seasonal norms, but dropping down to -9 degrees again by Thursday. So for the time being, there will be big swings in temperatures. Take good care of yourself. The air, however, remains very dry, so fire risk is a concern with a dry weather warning in place along the East Coast. Extra caution is needed to prevent wildfires. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 4 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju, Gwangju will be getting up to 7 degrees under bright skies in most parts with decent air quality. Meanwhile, rain or light snow begins tonight in Jeju and Gangwon-do province. Then another strong cold snap arrives on Thursday, followed by rain or snow from Friday into Saturday, mainly across the central regions and Jeollado provinces.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.